All right, good afternoon, everybody. It looks like there is quite a bit of interest in today's subcommittee hearing, so that is very nice. It looks like there is another chair over there. I don't think we can have you congregating by the door, but we can keep the door open, and if folks want to stand out in the hallway, we can do that. I don't know if most folks are here for Maryland Energy Administration? Yes. Yes? We are going to start with them. So if there are others in the room, I'm assuming that you are just going to stay for that and then you are going to depart. So if there are others in the room who would graciously give up their seats, who are waiting for later hearings, we would greatly appreciate it. And we will make sure to let you know when we are moving on to the next agency. So. No, sorry. Sorry. All right, we are going to go, this is the order, just so folks are clear and know. The Maryland Energy Administration, the Comptroller, Department of Transportation, Secretary's Office, and DPSES Administration and Offices, all right? Welcome. It is Thursday, February 26th, to the Public Safety, Transportation, and Environment Subcommittee. And we are going to start with, as I said, the Maryland Energy Administration. And Suveksha Bhujal is our analyst who's going to go through our analysis. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The budget for Maryland Energy Administration increases by $111.1 million or 38.5% to a total of $399.4 million in fiscal 27. We will start with the MFR data. Exhibit 1 on page 6 presents the in-state renewable energy generation. In calendar 2024, in-state renewable energy generation increased by 17.6% compared to previous year. Exhibit 2 on page 7 shows the number of awards issued by MEA to promote renewable and clean energy. In fiscal 2025, MEA awarded a total of 8,912 grants to incentivize in-state renewable energy generation, an increase of 18.9% from fiscal 24. Exhibit 3 on page 8 shows energy savings from energy efficiency programs. MEA anticipates an increase of 41.3% in overall energy savings in fiscal 2025 from projects funded that year. Individually, energy savings from low and moderate income energy efficiency programs are anticipated to decrease by 42.4%, and energy saving from other sectors, energy efficiency programs are anticipated to increase by 58.5%. MEA should discuss the reason for the anticipated decrease in energy saving from LMI programs despite higher spending. On page 10, there is a discussion of fiscal 2025 closeout. At fiscal 25 closeout, MEA canceled a total of $39 million. MEA reported these cancellations were due to lack of sufficient applications for its grants and awards. Although first requested in September 2025, MEA did not provide explanations for cancellations until February 14th, providing DLS insufficient time to analyze and ask questions. We are asking MEA to discuss the programs and associated canceled funds. MEA should discuss its efforts to fully utilize the authorized amounts. DLS recommends adding language restricting funds, pending submission of a report providing explanation of canceled funds at fiscal 26 closeout. Exhibit 5 on page 12 is the overview of agency spending. The largest share of fiscal 27 allowance consists of renewable and clean energy programs and initiatives at $306.1 million, an increase of 45.2% from fiscal 26. Of the total amount budgeted for renewable and clean energy, $100 million is contingent on legislation expanding allowable use of alternative compliance payments in the Strategic Energy Investment Fund. Exhibit 6 on page 13 is the energy agency spending by source. SEEF source from ACP totals $198 million and is the largest source of funding in fiscal 27. SEEF source from Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative Program revenues total $175.8 million of the fiscal 27 allowance. As shown in Exhibit 7 on page 15, estimated non-resi sourced CEF balance, excluding ACP, totaled 4.8 million at the end of fiscal 25, after accounting for encumbered funds. Balance in the fiscal 27, after accounting for encumbrances and assuming full utilization of appropriated funds, is estimated to be 3.5 million. The fiscal 27 allowance does not utilize the funds available in these sub-accounts, with an exception of a small amount from the offshore wind development account. MAA should discuss the plan for expending remaining funds in these accounts. Exhibit 8 on page 16 compares the fiscal 27 allowance with the working appropriation. Fiscal 27 allowance increases by 111.1 million compared to fiscal 26 working appropriation. The primary areas of increase are renewable and clean energy programs and initiatives, which increases by 95 million, and low and moderate income energy efficiency and conservation programs, which increases by 17.8 million. Although typically MEA has provided its budget details, MEA did not provide this information during the 2025 session. As a result, committee narrative requested MEA to provide this information with submission of fiscal 27 budget. MEA did not provide this information until February 18th, providing DLS insufficient time to analyze or ask questions. Given that the fund sources within MEA vary in allowable uses, receiving data on the spending by fund source is critical to ensure planned expenditures comply with the statute. DLS recommends adding language restricting funds pending submission of MEA's funding detail. The Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act of 2026 includes 4 provisions impacting CEF. One provision authorizes the governor to transfer up to 33 million from the administration account of CEF to general fund. Another provision authorizes a transfer of 259 million from ACP account of CEF to general funds. A set of provisions expand allowable use of Regi CEF revenues for various purposes, and a set of provisions expand allowable use of ACP CEF. The provisions expanding allowable uses will be further discussed in the issue section. Chapter 38 of 2022 provided the Climate Catalytic Capital Fund 5 million annually outside of CEF between fiscal 24 and 26. These mandated funds had been provided through the University of Maryland College Park campus. Despite the mandate ending, 5 million is provided to the fund through MEA in fiscal 27 budget. However, UMCP also includes 5 million in general funds. DLS recommends deleting the 5 million in general funds provided to the CCCF. The recommendation related to deletion of these funds will appear as part of the recommendations related to UMCP. The fiscal 27 allowance for MEA includes federal funding available through Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which includes 4.1 million from Preventing Outages and Enhancing Resilience of the Electric Grid Program, 9.2 million from State Energy Program, and 1.5 million from the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant. On page 21, we have the personnel data. In October 2025, the Board of Public Works approved abolition of positions statewide. In MEA, 1 position was abolished, which was associated with the Voluntary Separation Program. Moving on to issues starting on page 22, the first issue covers ACPs made under the Renewable Portfolio Standard Program. Due to the increase in RPS solar carve-out percentage requirements, as well as gradual increase in RPS Tier 1 requirements, RPS compliance through ACPs has increased in recent years. As shown in Exhibit 9 on page 23, between calendar 2015 and 2025, RPS Tier 1 requirement excluding solar carve-out increased by 18.5 percentage points. This requirement will fluctuate each year, reaching 35.5% in calendar 2030. As shown in Exhibit 10 on page 24, ACP revenue increased significantly beginning in calendar 2021. Initial growth in ACP occurred primarily from solar requirements. Since calendar 2023, solar-related ACP has declined, while general Tier 1 renewable-related ACP has become the dominant source. According to annual PSC reporting on the RPS program, total ACP of $362.3 million in calendar 2024 was required to meet program compliance. It is anticipated that ACP revenue will continue to remain elevated in the near term unless the amount of Tier 1 renewable sources capacities increase to meet the requirements. Exhibit 11 on page 25 shows the authorized uses of ACP source SEEF as defined in the state government article, as well as other recent authorizations. Generally, ACP is authorized to support low and moderate income communities and provide grants to electric companies to be refunded for residential distribution customers. Chapter 604 of 2025 authorized funds in MEA and MDOT for specific purposes in fiscal 2026 only. MEA should comment if it anticipates full utilization of the $50 million authorized by this chapter in fiscal 26. As shown in Exhibit 12 on page 26, the fiscal 27 allowance for MEA includes over $198 million from ACP source SEEF. Of the total, $100 million is contingent upon enactment of legislation expanding authorized uses of SEEF revenues. DLS notes that funding for local government energy modernization, commercial building program, and open energy innovation grant program that are being considered as allowable under current law do not appear to be allowable uses based on the information provided. MEA should comment on the uses of the funds for these programs to describe how they are being used to support LMI communities. DLS also recommends adding language making funds for these programs contingent on enactment of legislation expanding the uses of ACP. Fiscal 27 allowance includes $312 million from ACP revenues in SEEF for all state agencies, contingent on enactment of legislation expanding the allowable uses. Exhibit 13 on page 28 shows the expanded uses of ACP that are included in BRFA and Senate Bill 386 and House Bill 897. BRFA and the administration bills both expand allowable uses of ACP revenues in SEEF to provide funding to MEA and Department of General Services for creation of new Tier 1 renewable energy sources and provide funding to MDOT for transmission infrastructure. For the expanded uses of ACP included in both BRFA and the administration bills, DLS recommends striking duplicative provision in the BRFA. DLS also recommends striking the provision authorizing $15 million to PSC for transmission technologies and instead recommends this authorization be included in the administration bills. In the analysis for State Reserve Fund, DLS recommended deleting the $42 million for higher education research. DLS therefore recommends striking the provision authorizing the use of these funds for that purpose. Exhibit 14 on page 29 shows ACP sub-account fund balance. The ACP fund balance increased substantially beginning in fiscal 2022. The fiscal 27 ending balance is estimated to total $0.2 million after accounting for the fiscal 27 budget plan, including planned transfers and expanded use of the funds. Issue 2 covers REGI auction revenues. As shown in Exhibit 16 on page 32, total REGI program revenues received by Maryland from all auctions held in fiscal 25 totaled $267.5 million, which is the highest yearly revenue in program history. This is an increase of $53.3 million or 24.9% from fiscal 2024. Through the first 2 quarterly auctions held in fiscal 26, REGI program revenues totaled $135.3 million. Exhibit 17 on page 34 provides the current statutory allocation of REGI auction revenues as required by the state government article. Department of Human Services receives the largest portion of the auction revenue for energy assistance. The allocation of REGI auction revenues to the various SEEF sub-accounts occurs following the distribution of certain amounts required by statute. Compared to prior years, the number of items taken off the top before the revenue distribution increased in fiscal 2027. 3 new items totaling 24.7 million are added to the list. DLS notes that transfer prior to allocation reduces funds available to be allocated. Particularly, the dollar amount available for energy assistance is impacted the most as it receives the highest percentage of RGGI revenues after the transfers. MEA should discuss why some of the new items are being taken off the top of the revenue before distribution and how it determines which programs should or should not be distributed through this manner. As shown in Exhibit 18 on pages 36 and 37, the fiscal 27 allowance includes a total of 399.7 million in RGGI-sourced CEF funding, an increase of 74.7 million, primarily due to an increase of 27.8 million in LMI energy efficiency and conservation programs, and an increase of 55.1 million in renewable and clean energy programs and initiatives. DLS notes that the governor's fiscal 27 budget books identify RGGI source CEF as a source of the Climate Catalytic Capital Fund. However, MEA provided documents indicated that this funding is split between RGGI sourced and SCP sourced revenue. MEA should clarify the source of funds used for this program. Exhibit 19 on page 38 provides a breakdown of appropriations that are contingent on enactment of the RGGI revenue expansions that is included in the BRFA, which authorizes 15.8 million in RGGI revenue for various purposes. As shown in Exhibit 20 on page 39, at the close of fiscal 25, the balance of RGGI source CEF totaled 438.2 million after accounting for encumbered funds. The fiscal 27 ending balance is projected to total 160.2 million. Issue 3 covers Federal Inflation Reduction Act programs, Maryland's application for Home Energy Performance-Based Whole House Rebate Program, High Efficiency Electric Home Rebate Program, and State-Based Home Energy Efficiency Contractor Training Grant Program has been conditionally approved by the U.S. Department of Energy. MEA reports additional approvals are required before the funds become accessible. As of December 2025, MEA has not received approval for these programs. Issue 4, starting on page 40, covers EV charging infrastructure funding. The IIJA provided funds for EV charging infrastructure to the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Formula Program and Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Program. In December 2025, 3 charging stations built under first round of NEVI became operational in Maryland. In October 2025, MDOT announced conditional awards under Round 2 of NEVI program. It has been issued for 12 project sites in 12 counties within Maryland. Exhibit 21 on page 43 presents data on total annual registration of zero-emission vehicles in Maryland and the total number of publicly accessible charging stations statewide. Through its programming, MEA incentivized 2,818 charging stations as of fiscal 2025, which is a decrease from fiscal 2024. MEA should comment on this decrease. Recommended actions start on page 44. The first and second recommendations are languages that modify language making a portion of appropriation in MEA contingent on expansion of allowable uses to more closely identify the expanded uses for which these funds are needed and better match the applicable legislation. Recommendation 3 strikes language making a portion of the appropriation in MEA contingent on expansion of allowable uses. Instead, 2 pieces of language mentioned in Recommendation 1 and 2 are added. Recommendation 4 is a language withholding funds until details on MEA's funding are provided with submission of fiscal 28 budget. Recommendation 5 is a language withholding funds until a report is submitted, providing explanation on fund cancellations at fiscal 26 closeout. Recommendation 6 makes a portion of the appropriation in MEA contingent on expansion of allowable uses. Recommendation 7 is a committee narrative requesting a report on revenue assumptions, fund balance, and uses of CEF revenues sourced from the RGGI program auctions. Recommendation 8 is a committee narrative requesting report on federal funding. Recommendation 9 is a committee narrative requesting report on uses of $100 million in SCP provided to MEA. There are two BRFA-related recommendations. The first recommendation is to strike language authorizing funds from SCP account of CEF to provide $20 million to DGS and $30 million to MEA for creation of new Tier 1 renewable energy sources, $10 million to MDOT for transmission infrastructure, and $15 million to PSC for grid enhancing and transmission technologies that also relate to expanded authorization in separate legislation to avoid duplication. Second recommendation on page 49 is to strike language authorizing funds from SCP account of CEF transferred to the dedicated purpose account to provide $42 million for higher education research grants. This concludes my presentation, and I'll take any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Ms. Bujal? All right, thank you very much. Welcome, Ms. Speaks-Beckman. We really appreciate your being here. Are you acting director or director?
Director, yes.
Director, okay. Could you introduce the person sitting next to you, please?
Absolutely. Well, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to present our comments on behalf of the Maryland Energy Administration. Special thanks to Suveksha. Thank you for her thoughtful analysis and overview of MEA's budget. And a very special thank you to the staff who helped me bring me up to speed. This is my day 63 here at Maryland Energy Administration. I once served a few years ago, we'll just say a few years ago, shall we? And I just really am so thrilled to be back here at the Maryland Energy Administration during this particular time. So just for the record, Kelly Speaks-Beckman, Director of MEA, and I'm excited to take helm at MEA to work with Governor Moore, to work with all of you to address our growing energy demands and affordability. The mission of MEA is to promote clean, affordable, reliable energy and energy-related greenhouse gas emission reductions to benefit Marylanders in a just and equitable manner. Maryland is facing serious challenges with affordability today. Could you turn that off, please? Thank you. Sorry about that. Our question really that we are facing is how do we address the very real and very critical issues of affordability while maintaining our climate and resilience goals? And we do this at MEA by advancing impactful energy policy and by administrating a broad portfolio of financial and technical assistance to Maryland residents, businesses, schools, and local governments. MEA deploys funds from the Strategic Energy Investment Fund, or SEIF, to help Marylanders access clean energy and to implement energy efficiency and cost-effective electrification practices. A few stats there. Of our roughly $400 million allocation for fiscal year 27, most of it, about $387 million, would go back out the door to fund financial and technical assistance for Marylanders. In fiscal year 25, so looking back a bit, Maryland Energy Administration programs incentivize the deployment of nearly 100 megawatts of solar capacity, serving 6,326 low and moderate income households, and funding projects expected to reduce annual greenhouse gas emissions by 116,402 metric tons of CO2. That's an impact equivalent to the carbon sequestered by more than 3 million tree seedlings growing for 10 years, or 24,588 internal combustion cars. We tried to do a combination of what's on the roads today, and I'm glad to see there's so many electric vehicles, but if we just want to, have an apples-to-apples comparison. In fiscal years 24 and 25, MEA's community solar program added 78 megawatts of solar to the grid, serving 10,500 low and moderate income subscriber households who are anticipated to see $99 million in total utility bill savings over 20 years. And finally, we funded 14 public school electrification projects in 9 counties in fiscal years 24 and 25. These projects are anticipated to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 1,923 metric tons of CO2, roughly 36,018 students are going to benefit from these projects. So, regarding our work and referencing the questions posed by the Department of Legislative Services, just to start off, MEA agrees with the recommendations on page 10 regarding the review of closeout processes, and on page 18 regarding a report on funding by program and source. On page 8, Legislative Services requests that MEA discuss the reason for the anticipated decrease in energy savings from low and moderate income efficiency programs despite higher spending in 2025. I'd like to respond to that. I mean, the simplest and easiest, I should say least costly energy efficiency measures like lighting have become less common these days. The near universal adoption of low-cost LED lights is a good story. It also impacts the spending that we do. To achieve our energy and cost savings, therefore, projects must increasingly rely on replacing higher cost measures such as HVAC equipment, equipment that's also experienced meaningful increases in labor and material costs due to inflation, due to tariffs, and other factors. In addition, a greater share of funds have been allocated to address health and safety conditions that require remediation before an energy efficiency retrofit can be implemented. Moving to page 14, the request was that MEA discuss the plan for expending remaining funds in non-RGGI sourced subaccounts. Our response is that the majority of these funds are associated with 2 PSC-directed expenditures related to the Pepco Exelon merger and to the AltaGas WGL merger. Both funds are severely restricted in how they can be utilized. For the Pepco Exelon funds, MEA is assigning the remaining funds to qualifying energy efficiency and combined heat and power projects on a case-by-case basis to draw down those funds. On the AltaGas settlement, funding was restricted to projects that expand natural gas utilization and infrastructure in Maryland with a wide set aside, set aside for use only within the WGL territory. Now, in line with Maryland's climate goals, MEA no longer funds natural gas expansion. MEA was authorized under Section 3 of the 2023 BRFA to use $9.25 million of the money derived from the WGL merger to support repair of existing natural gas infrastructure in the WGL territory. In fiscal year 2024, MEA allocated that $9.25 million to WGL for leak repairs and has no intent to use the remaining funds. Turning to page 26, the question is if we anticipate full utilization of the $50 million authorized by Chapter 604 in fiscal year 26. Short answer is yes. We do anticipate full utilization. The Local Government Energy Modernization Program, or LGEM, was designed as a formula-based block grant program for Maryland counties. It allows counties to utilize awarded funds for planning and execution of clean energy projects over 3 years. Due to the flexibility of that program design and the aggressive outreach to local governments, MEA received applications from 22 of the 24 counties. So we absolutely expect to expend all of that money. Also, on page 26, MEA is asked to describe how certain funds are being used to support LMI communities. Approximately a quarter of MEA programs limit eligibility to exclusivity to projects located in or benefiting low and moderate income and overburdened communities in Maryland. We included an illustrative list of these programs in our written testimony. On page 28, there's a recommendation to strike duplicative provisions in the BRFA. And while we fully agree that duplicative provision should be avoided, MEA would like to propose an alternative remedy. We believe that the language related to expanded uses of ACP contained within the BRFA is more expansive than the administration's energy bill and should remain in the BRFA, actually. So specifically, the ACP use is heavily restricted to specific census tracts or income limits. For the next 5 years only, the BRFA would allow ACP to be used to promote Tier 1 renewable resources without additional restrictions in current law. On page 35, MEA is asked to discuss why some of the new items are being taken off the top instead of being allocated under the related program. Now, where law requires transfers or programs sourced from the CEF, notwithstanding the RGGI formula, MEA believes that an off-the-top distribution is appropriate. Off-the-top distributions ensure that MEA programs are not sort of crowded out by external programs funded under a specific RGGI account. To clarify the source of funds being used for the Climate Catalytic Capital Fund on page 35, the source of funds should be the RGGI Renewable and Clean Energy Programs subaccount. Next, on page 42, we are asked to comment on the decrease in MEA incentivized charging stations. Our EVSE rebates are available to both residential and commercial applicants. And due to increasing installation costs, in part, fiscal year 25, more residential rebates were awarded at the $700 cap, making fewer rebates possible. Commercial rebates in fiscal year 25 were also higher, $15,091 on average per applicant, compared to $10,600 in fiscal year 24. MEA also launched in fiscal year 25 the Community EVSE program, and that program funded projects to support 187 EV charging ports, of which 122 are level 2 and 65 are DC fast charging ports. The fast charging across programs also rose from 32 ports in fiscal year 24 to 111 ports in fiscal year 25. Now, the fast chargers are more expensive than level 2, but they also offer significantly faster charging, allowing more vehicles to charge in a given period. And lastly, we would like to comment on, just briefly, on the operating recommended actions, pages 44 through 49. MEA respectfully requests that the proposed gap financing program identified in recommendation 1 be made contingent on BRFA language authorizing expanded allowable uses of ACP payments, rather than making this contingent on legislation specifically authorizing a gap financing program. We believe we already have the authority to operate a gap financing program, but we need additional flexibility to deploy ACP funds for that purpose. And with that, I am happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Senator Rosebud.
Good to see you.
I got a big picture question. My impression is all the money that's run up in the accounts at the CEF because of RGGI and because of the alternative payments are basically the result of the slow adoption of renewables, right? So big picture, what's one of the 1, 2, 3 reasons you think we have such slow adoption of renewables?
I'm thinking just for a second about the premise, the slow adoption of renewables. I would say that I think that Maryland is not necessarily slower than other states. We do pretty well when compared to other states on renewable adoption. Not top of the pack. I mean, when you think about California and New York and Massachusetts, but we do pretty well. But why do I think it is slow adoption? I think there are a number of reasons nationwide, but especially in Maryland. Permitting is, quite frankly, an issue that every state struggles with, and it's something that we've struggled with here in the state of Maryland as well. I think that's something to be addressed, and I think there are multiple programs and multiple, actually, there legislative bills today that are trying to address that here in Maryland. I would say another reason is, we foresaw with the IRA funding and IIJA funding quite a bit of support for solar and wind and storage, and the uncertainty of the pullback from this recent federal administration has put quite a bit of stress on developers. I was just recently with a developer here in the US before I joined Maryland Energy Administration, and it's slowed our progress over the last year.
Let me push a little more on that,
Sure.
Madam Chair. I get what happened over the last year, and obviously the most recent auction is to some extent reflective of that. But if you go back several years, it ain't great. And this is before, this is, if you go, I mean, just look at the charts. And permitting, I get, we passed legislation last year dealing with solar permitting. Anything else?
Well, I would say also it didn't help that our regional transmission organization stopped all interconnection approvals, the vast majority of which were solar projects and solar plus storage projects, which could have vastly helped us. And I will say time and time again, it was a major disruption to the industry to have that halted. And I will also say that they seem to finally be responsive in changing some of that, but we'll see how this plays out. I think that was a major, major problem for us.
I agree. Why do you think they did that?
Thank you for the question, sir. The governance of the RTOs, frankly, is not working well for Maryland, and we have to address it. The governance in terms of what is and is not approved, the governance of their board and the makeup of their board, and I dare say we will be working with the other 13 governors, the other 12 governors' offices to address some of these governance issues where state priorities and state policies are not being given the attention that they deserve.
Okay, thank you,
I have
Madam
a
Chair.
bill on that, by the way.
Sorry?
I have a bill on that, by the way.
I know you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Sally.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the information. Secretary, just a few questions. We see this state not in a bad place in many ways, and one is energy.
I'm sorry.
The problem is energy and the lack of. Okay, and we see this. And we see eventually what's going to be happening in the future. Things we don't want, brownouts, eventually blackouts. We see us as legislators, but our constituents, very concerned. And my biggest concern is this. We're trying to find ways and methods and things by brainstorming and seeing what we can do for our constituents, for our businesses that are paying $29,000, $50,000 a month in their energy bills. Constituents from $200 to $500 to $700 to $800. Unbelievable, the prices that now they're saying, can they buy their prescriptions, groceries for their kids, seniors having a tough time right now. I think every person in this room could probably say, guarantee that their electric bill and their gas bill has gone so much up. And it breaks my heart because we've all have gotten the calls. We're not in a good place. We're really not. So as Marylanders that are struggling so much, what can we do? What's the possibilities? What are out there right now? It's a proven fact that we've shut down so much. And when we've shut down so much, we would think that maybe we can replace it with something that's at least accommodating, and it hasn't been. So what are we doing as Marylanders to making sure that the state is doing exactly what they need to do to bring more energy and bring more supply and being more independent and not dependent upon another state?
Sir, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that question. I agree with you that we face a crisis of affordability, that we face issues of reliability and resilience in the face of increasing storms and in the face of external forces. And there are multiple bills in this legislative session which are aimed to address the short, medium, and long-term affordability and reliability issues for the state of Maryland, not the least of which has been introduced, and we just had a hearing, was it yesterday? Or maybe Tuesday, regarding the governor's bill. So and that during a period when we are facing a challenging time to balance the budget, which we are required to do, is not a small feat. And so there are a number of options before us. I think there are a record number of energy bills that are facing us, and we today in this legislative session, and we are working with all interested parties and welcome all ideas to be able to address short-term availability. One of the proposals is this $100 million energy bill rebate. Now, there are lots of conversations about how that might be better used, the $100 million, and we are open to discussions, and we've invited and have had multiple conversations. On the medium and long term, I would say our transmission infrastructure is aging and it is insufficient. And we can make better use of the existing infrastructure that we already have. And that's through using technologies such as grid enhancing technologies or other advanced transmission technologies to make it more efficient so that people get more out of the energy that is generated. I would say the other issue is we don't have enough generation in the state. Nope. We import 40% of our electricity.
Pennsylvania, we sure do.
And that's too much. And so by helping us to accelerate permitting, by making it less risky for folks to install clean energy or energy at any energy that is affordable, frankly, and looking at the least cost of those solutions is how we're going to get there. But we have to keep, sorry, I'm going on a little too long. What I want to say is we have to keep the short-term immediate pressures in mind, even as we're working on the medium and the long term.
And it's one thing that troubles me is that we see our infrastructure and we see the problems that we've had. One thing that is a benefit with big businesses that they constantly do is something called preventive maintenance. They prevent things before it gets troubling, and they prevent it before it gets to a place where we can say, oh my gosh, where we are right now. I think we need to be better managers in that area. But we can definitely say that, again, we've eliminated some things that we thought should be eliminated. But we haven't had properly replaced those things, so we're not to a place right now where people's bills are over their head and they're drowning. So I'm hoping that maybe somebody can get a bill that's saying this is an emergency bill. We're going to make sure that when the governor signs it, it comes into law. And the 90 days that we're here, I want to say that this legislation and this administration has done something for our constituents, and we've made a difference. Because if we don't do that, I think we fail our constituents. So thank you.
I hope so too, sir. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? So there is a lot in this analysis, and there is a lot to be
Tell me about it.
discussed. So I would like to follow up offline.
Absolutely.
So if we can do that, because this is, as you are hearing from the number of people who signed up to testify and my colleagues here, this is an issue that is first and foremost among all of our minds and our constituents' minds, especially as they get their monthly bills.
I very much appreciate it.
And because they also care about a clean environment and making sure that we preserve it for our children and grandchildren.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
concludes the hearing, this portion of MEA. We do have a number of people who have signed up to testify, and I'm going to call you up, I guess, in groups of 3, and each of you gets 2 minutes. And apologies if I don't pronounce your name correctly. Sergine Yango, Morel Goldsmith, and Mona Levine. And feel free to begin. You don't need to touch anything. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and member of the committee. My name is Sergine Yengo, and I have been a renter in Maryland for over 20 years. I live in one of the many other apartment buildings in Maryland where rent is relatively affordable, but where owners have not invested renovation over the years. As a result, many of us live with aging gas-powered appliances, poor ventilation, mold, rodent, and rising utility bills. Through the Maryland Just Power Alliance Community Science Project, I have personally tested over 100 apartments for nitrogen dioxide and carbon monoxide. In older apartments, most appliances are powered by methane gas. Ventilation is not standard, it is a luxury. That means harmful gas get trapped in our homes. And we know what that leads to: asthma and other respiratory illness. Research shows children in homes with gas stove face significantly higher asthma risk. And recent national study estimate that about 12% of childhood asthma cases in the US are linked to gas stove use. These are not just statistics, they are Maryland children. Where I live, we have a strong tenant association. We organize, we advocate, we speak up. But even with collective power, getting landlords to replace gas-powered HVAC system, gas, water, heater, and gas stoves is extremely difficult. Why? Because from their perspective, it does not add up financially as renters. We can replace appliances, we can install heat pump, we can upgrade ventilation system. The only person who can make those changes is the landlord. That is why the Maryland Energy Administration Strategic Energy Investment Fund, the SIF, is so important. The SIF is not taxpayer money. It was created to reduce greenhouse gas emission and support energy transformation. Let us use it strategically, just as its name says. Using SIF fund to promote induction stove.
Are you wrapping up? Please. Okay.
Using SIF fund to promote induction stove, heat pump, water heater, windows heat pump would give landlords a reason to help renters breathe clean air. I ask you to imagine a Maryland where every child, whether their family rent or own, have the opportunity to breathe clean air. We deserve the same opportunity as homeowners to live in energy efficiency healthy home. We deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If people could refrain from responding. We have a lot of people. I just want to be mindful of time and decorum. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mona Levine, and I'm a member of B'nai Israel congregation in Rockville, Maryland. I represent our congregation in action in Montgomery, AIM, which is part of the Maryland Just Power Alliance. I'm here to testify in support of protecting the Strategic Energy Investment Fund, which is funded, I should say, by Maryland ratepayers. Please commit to at least $365 million annually for fiscal 2027 and beyond from this fund to ensure that high-impact, equitable funds are used for programs that directly support Marylanders' transitions to clean energy technologies. These include low-income induction stove and heat pump pilots, electric school buses, and solar programs. The heat pump and induction stove pilot programs can save low-income families up to $1,500 a year. The pilots can reduce emissions per household by 1 to 2 tons a year. And further, the payback for the incremental cost of heat pumps is only 7 years. Why am I asking you to take these actions and prevent SEEF funds from being transferred? 2 Jewish values are tikva, hope, faith in the ever-present possibility of renewal and growth, and tzedek, the obligation to build a just society and pursue justice and fairness for all. These values guide me and all of us to protect the health and security of all our citizens for now and the future. While I'm fortunate enough to live in a single-family home where I was able to vent my gas stove directly to the outside, my neighbors and friends in apartment buildings like Sergine cannot do that. I have seen the NO2 testing and results that Sergine talked about and that show the dangers of natural gas stoves in multifamily buildings. They cause asthma and other respiratory illnesses in children and adults. We must change that. The SAFE funds, specifically the MEA Residential Energy Equity Grant Funds, can help achieve that goal. These programs support the intended purpose of the SAFE fund. Using these funds for general revenue purposes hurts our low-income communities who are most vulnerable. It also hurts our state in its efforts to protect the environment and ensure efficient energy sources for us all, our children and grandchildren. Please protect these funds for the future.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Mirella Goldsmith. Several months ago, staff from Action in Montgomery came to my apartment to test the level of pollution emitted by my gas stove. After lighting the gas burners, the level of nitrogen dioxide in my kitchen reached 200 parts per billion, a level that the EPA deems very unhealthy for outdoor air. I was scared by these results because I am sensitive to air pollution. In June 2023, when our region was blanketed by smoke from Canadian wildfires, I developed a cough and other symptoms. I was diagnosed with sarcoidosis, which often affects firefighters. Since then, I have asthma-like sensitivities for which I take daily medication. Breathing any kind of smoke brings on symptoms. Tragically, we can anticipate that more Marylanders will be getting sick from these kinds of events because of climate change. These personal experiences bring me here to urge you to protect the SEEF and use the funds for electrification, and specifically to direct $5 million to a low-income induction stove pilot program. However, that's not all. I live in a luxury apartment building in downtown Bethesda, so my building shouldn't need a subsidy to electrify. However, when I asked my landlord to replace the gas stove in my apartment, the response was that it would cost too much money to rewire the building. I think that building owners should be required to upgrade their buildings to protect tenants from gas emissions, and I hope that the legislature will consider such a mandate. I'm speaking here for myself and not on behalf of any organization, but my engagement with this issue is informed by my faith. I'm a member of a Dutch Shalom Reconstructionist Congregation's Climate Action Team, and our congregation participates in Action in Montgomery and the Just Power Alliance. In preparing for this testimony, I was reminded of the biblical commandment, when you build a new house, you shall make a parapet for your roof, so you do not bring blood guilt on your house. Now that we know that burning gas in our homes is dangerous, what are we waiting for?
Thank you very much. Thank you, each of you. We'll call up Amber Merrill, Kristen Harbison, and Matt Stegman, please. Does anyone see Matt? I don't see Matt. All right, how about Joelle Novi?
Yes, I'm John Magoon, Joella registered.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Kristen Harbison, Political Director for the Maryland League of Conservation Voters. And Maryland LCV urges the committee to accept Governor Moore's proposed operating budget for the Maryland Energy Administration without making any further reductions. Over the past 10 years, Maryland has adopted some of the strongest and most ambitious clean energy and climate resilience goals in the country. Indeed, Maryland is a leader in proactively planning for addressing the impacts of climate change. In addition to advancing climate pollution reduction and renewable energy, the Strategic Energy Investment Fund is a critical source of support for advancing the administration's stated goals of addressing systemic injustices. At the same time, the CEF investments advance job creation, resilience, and economic development. This is money that is taken from the ratepayers and needs to be used for the ratepayers. It is the largest source to directly support the energy efficiency and for ratepayers to help them improve their health and well-being of their families. At the same time of soaring energy prices, CEF supports the critical programs that lower costs for families, including both energy efficiency and weatherization upgrades that reduce the amount of energy used to heat and cool homes, as well as the energy assistance programs that help those in need afford their monthly energy bills. It's essential that the General Assembly maintain at least level funding for the agency to spend on these programs, dedicating CEF funds only for the purposes that will achieve long-term climate resiliency, pollution reduction, and public health benefits for Maryland and Marylanders, and retain at least level funding for MEA operations and the CEF programs. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, my name is Amber Merrill, and I'm a resident of Montgomery County. I am in favor of the CEF proposal that the Sierra Club distributed to everyone and will describe later today, with an emphasis on funding for heat pumps and induction stoves for low to moderate income households. CEF presents an opportunity to invest in healthy and affordable energy. And I understand that this is a difficult budget year, but CEF can and should do so much more than issue $40 rebates and balance the budget. $40 does not even cover weekly groceries. $40 makes absolutely zero difference to my and my neighbors' financial situations. Everyone I have spoken with, whether homeowner or renter, would prefer CEF money to be spent on striving towards an equitable energy transition where no Marylander is subject to exorbitant utility bills and unsafe and unhealthy living conditions due to aging and inefficient electric and gas infrastructure. CEF is climate money, and it has the power to be able to make a significant difference in families, communities, and our statewide goals. We literally cannot afford for money to be removed from CEF. CEF money can reduce our reliance on fossil fuels. CEF can bring healthier air to Maryland homes. CEF can bring down energy bills at a time when Marylanders are making the decision whether to keep the lights on or buy groceries. The proposal described by the Sierra Club is a modest ask. I personally want every cent of CEF to be spent on, as intended, on energy efficiency, renewables, and decarbonization. But for this year, I will settle for heat pumps and induction stoves. And if you need guidance on implementing such programs, please look to the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, because they are already doing this work. Please honor the testimonies you hear today and help your constituents in their daily lives. Protect CEF, invest in energy savings, and healthy Maryland communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. My name is John Magoon. I'm from Ellicott City. Today I'm here as a lay leader at Emmanuel United Methodist Church in Laurel, whose building could have gone solar this year but can't because the MEA grant funds we applied for ran out. Emmanuel is a pillar in our community, serving our neighbors. Our green team cares for the environment, and we've dreamed of going solar forever, but it's always been cost prohibitive. The MEA solar grant gave us hope that solar panels could be possible for our church. You can imagine how much volunteer time went into evaluating, meeting, researching paperwork, getting estimates, and applying for the grant. Emmanuel has received MEA funds to help us replace our oil burning boiler and water heater, and we know from our friends at Interfaith Power and Light that dozens of other Maryland congregations are also seeking MEA grant funds, especially as federal incentives are going away. Houses of worship need these grants to install solar panels to replace fuel oil boilers and heat pumps and upgrade to heat pumps and water heaters. These clean energy projects aren't theoretical, they are real things that CEF funds could make possible in our communities. When MEA rejected our church's solar grant, I was so disappointed. We all were, and we weren't the only ones. At least 5 other congregations ready to go solar were denied. 2, another in Howard County, 3 in Baltimore, and 1 in Wycomico County. These eligible projects lost out simply because demand exceeded supply. MEA received over $18 million in requests for $13 million in funds, and the grant closed early. Polluters are paying into CEFs because Maryland is falling short of our climate goals. Communities like mine are prepared to help meet these goals. Our project is ready. When I hear that the governor's budget is proposing to raid hundreds of millions of dollars in clean energy funds yet again, instead of giving the grants that would make my church's solar panels possible, I take it personally. Every dollar in the CEF should support clean energy in Maryland. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your being here. Kirsty Mitchell and Josh Tolkien. And Tiara Sturkins. Sorry? Oh, sorry. Yes.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Josh Tolkien on behalf of the Maryland chapter of the Sierra Club. Senator Sowling, thank you for the question. I want to return to the question you asked earlier. What can we do right now? Last year, over $500 million was diverted from the Strategic Energy Investment Fund. This year, a proposed about $500 million is diverted. That is $1 billion statutorily directed towards new energy generation that is not being spent on new energy generation. This is a very complex issue, but the most obvious and straightforward step in front of us is to make sure that alternative compliance payments, which are essentially a penalty for not having enough energy, is directed to continue and expand the amount of clean energy generation. By our estimates, the amount diverted away from the ACPs is near double the amount that is being committed to clean energy generation in the last 2 cycles. I want to applaud the Maryland Energy Administration for some phenomenal programs, local government focus, congregational focus. The amount of energy and interest in the Maryland public is clear. People want to participate as congregations, as individuals, as communities. We see more landlords participating. We see tenants very interested. We're here to help illustrate the opportunity cost. CEF is not just a pot of money that is sitting there as a reserve. It's a commitment from the paid for by the ratepayers, and the ratepayers and the customers are here saying we're here to help, but we also have some requests. You're hearing today a request for a $5 million induction stove rebate program so we can help people switch away from polluting gas stoves with poor ventilation. We're asking for a rebate program focused on heat pumps, including a pilot project on window heat pumps to allow for more creative use that doesn't require the removal of infrastructure, heat pump hot water heaters, and general use heat pumps. The interest and the demand is there. This is the best way to target these benefits directly to people for lifetime savings. And I have plenty more I'd love to say about it if there's time. Thank you.
Madam Chair, committee members, thank you for hearing my testimony. My name is Kirsty Mitchell, and I am a member of St. James Episcopal Church in Potomac. And I am supporting the environmental community's CEF proposal for 3 main reasons. Last November, my church held listening sessions to understand how our members could better thrive. In every single group, people mentioned the cost of living. This surprised me. I assumed most people in Potomac didn't share my concerns. I have shockingly high electricity bills. I paid $1,024 in January and $988 in February after making adjustments. And as a renter, I feel powerless as my landlord is unwilling to invest in the property. But we're privileged and we can pay our bills. What about renters who face this same challenge but who have to make impossible choices? And we've heard about those. If you use the CEF funds for their intended purpose, you can make a real difference. For example, allocating funds for heat pumps can generate ongoing savings for families of up to $1,500 annually. I'm asking you to do this also because my faith tells me to care for creation. I can do this at a personal level by turning down the thermostat, yet you can have a much bigger impact by allocating CEF monies to enable lower income families and their landlords to make the changes necessary to reduce their energy consumption and their utilities bills. Finally, as a mother of 3 children, I'm asking you to use the CEF funds to enable Marylanders to reduce energy consumption and pollution long term. Then I can show my children that politics is not a cynical game, but that our elected leaders listen to us and act in our collective best interests. Thank you.
Thank you. Josh, I actually have a question for you. Do you know what the average cost is of an induction stove?
They range from a full stove unit with the oven and the cooktop range from around 2,000 up to the more advanced ones about 5,000.
Okay, just curious. And then
But I should note that the other option are the portable cooktops, which are about $150 each with 2 burners and run on 120 volt. Our conversations with some owners are saying that they require 4 burners. Some said that a simple 2-burner cooktop would be a really excellent alternative.
Okay, I mean, one of the issues that was raised was the decrease in energy savings from LMI energy efficiency programs despite higher spending. And the response was, you know, the low-hanging fruit of the LEDs and making that transition. And we're obviously transitioning to more things that are more expensive that can. So I just wanted, and I don't know what a heat pump is or these window heat pumps, but if you could just comment on that response from the agency also.
Absolutely concur with the agency. I think that some of the cheapest low-hanging fruit, the lighting in particular, has been achieved. Not universally, but Maryland, like many other states, is now turning to larger investments with larger payoffs, and that is both at the residential and the commercial level. About 33,000 low-income residents will replace their HVAC system this year. And at that point, the question is, can the state incentivize them? And they'll have to be paying $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 if it's residential. So it is a large investment, whether it's a heat pump or the replacement of a gas system. The question at this point is, can the state incentivize a purchase of a system that will yield 15 to 20 years savings of $1,000 a year? So these are not cheap systems. We'll be looking at higher value investments. I believe that the Energy Administration mentioned 6,000 or 7,000 people participated in various programs. I think a large heat pump program would probably benefit upwards of 3,000, 5,000 homes, so maybe 20,000 residents. But the question is, if you do that every year, you begin to accumulate not just 1 year of savings, but 20 years of savings.
And just one other question. In terms of these programs, I mean, not all of them are targeted to lower income folks, right?
Correct.
So obviously we have hard decisions to make and a limited amount of funds to be able to attribute to these issues.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on targeting?
First and foremost, the Sierra Club, like many of the speakers here, does view this as a moral issue. And I think our first obligation is not just to think of everybody who's suffering from high bills, which is true, but particularly those who are most vulnerable with the highest energy burden. So I do think it's critical that low-income communities be centered at this moment. But a healthy heat pump program is going to be a mix of a reasonable focus on a low-income and general population. We need to be thinking about a pace that helps build out the workforce development. And so I think a good conversation with the Maryland Energy Administration and others would be what is the right balance. In terms of system design, they already have, as well as DHCD has outreach programs. DHCD has a gas repair program. So I would be interested in checking in with them to get a sense of what they thought the appropriate pace would be.
Thank you. Senator Rosenpep.
Heat pump issue. If the savings and the cost savings are what you say they are, which I have no reason to believe they aren't, why doesn't the industry finance it?
Which industry?
The folks who install heat pumps.
To the best of my knowledge, none of these industries, except for maybe the automobile industry, have their own loan system. So there are a lot of states that have what's known as PACE, which is Property Assessed Clean Energy. There's a variety of strategic loan funds that help people cover the upfront costs. It is a I don't have a great reason. They don't seem to be financing most of these installations, whether the heat pumps or the gas systems. They're typically ones that people are required
Okay, but
to pay down.
I think we ought to find out, because I think that's the strategic way to approach this thing, instead of using CEF money for subsidies, is to do it at scale and do it across the population.
Yeah.
If the economics are what you say they are, there ought to be a way to have a financing system. So.
Absolutely. And I believe that the Maryland Clean Energy Center has been operating a financing program in Montgomery County. So there should be some good initial information on.
That's great. Well, if you can get us information on that, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much. I think this concludes the, I don't have anyone else signed up. Tell me what your name is.
Robert Callaway.
Robert Callaway, yes, I do have you, sorry. Did I, I'm sorry?
I signed up Stuart Stein, said about bringing oral testimony.
I do not have you signed up. Who else, is there anyone else? All right, if the two of you will be the last ones, go ahead.
And Madam Chair, one quick answer. You asked about the window air conditioning units. They actually just fit into the window, and there's a part that fits outside and inside.
They're window
And they're-
heat pumps?
They're window heat pumps,
Okay.
and they're 110, so it doesn't require any additional wiring.
Okay, thank you.
That's in general how they work. Want me to go first? Yeah. Okay. Madam Chair, and committee members, my name is Bob Callaway. Thank you for your time and attention. Today, I would like to focus on the conversion of home electric resistance hot water heaters to heat pump hot water heaters. Heat pump hot water heaters are 2 to 4 times more efficient, due in large part because they don't create heat, they transfer the heat from one place to another, much like your refrigerator works. One of the many benefits of the CEF is that it provides funding assistance for families to make the transition to heat pump hot water heaters and reap the health and financial benefits for up to 2 decades. One-time energy bill credits, though they may seem like a nice idea, are one and done policy that don't help increase energy efficiency or improve long-term household affordability, as would an investment in clean energy technologies. For example, about 1.5 years ago, we replaced our hot water heater with a new hot water heater, heat pump hot water heater. And I'd like to show you the picture. It was an easy one-day installation in the same footprint as our previous hot water heater. And we even gained an additional 10 gallons of capacity. Since heat pump hot water heaters don't need an external venting, we were able to remove the ugly exhaust piping from our house too. I have some energy bills here, but basically you can see that during the summer months, we still had an energy usage, but once we converted to the heat pump hot water technology, our energy bill went down to 0 during the warm weather months. We only had to pay the $14 line charge. On a personal note, we adopted 2 rescue kittens during the pandemic. We soon learned they suffered from asthma. Since converting to our heat pump hot water heater, they have not had any asthma attacks. This health improvement may in part contributed to the conversion. So in closing, as a citizen of Bowie and a member of its Green Team and Environmental Advisory Committee, I ask you to please help low to moderate income residents achieve healthy homes by protecting SEEF and investing in energy savings for healthy Maryland communities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stuart Simon. Good afternoon. Thank you for letting me speak today. I'm on the Action in Montgomery Steering Committee at Adat Shalom and lead advocacy for the Montgomery County Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions, but I'm speaking today as an individual. AIM and the climate community SEEF spending proposal has a special emphasis on aiding low-income households. While I'm not from a low-income household, my wife and I have taken advantage of many of the subsidized energy programs, including insulating our attic, getting a hot water heat tank, heat pump, enlisting in the Smart Mart Thermostat Energy Saver Program, and purchasing an induction stove. Thanks to living in a condo complex, which is powered by heat pumps, our complex already meets Montgomery County's energy performance standards without needing any additional expenditures. While we can't directly install solar panels due to our roof size and orientation, we are subscribed to a local community solar field, which provides additional cost savings. While many factors play into what a household's energy usage will be, thanks to our using all of these clean energy and energy efficiency programs, our energy usage was so much lower this January than a comparably cold month a year ago that our January PEPCO bill, despite the substantial rate increase, is actually $32 less than a year ago. This highlights that the proposed subsidized energy efficiency improvements can produce in just a month or two energy cost savings equal to or greater than the one-time $40 rebate proposed from SEEF funds. Instead of being forced to run toxic coal plants and build new climate-destroying and unhealthy gas-fired plant infrastructure, let us instead focus on solving our energy shortage and climate crisis in the cheapest and healthiest way by using SEEF funds as intended.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for making the trip to Annapolis. We really appreciate hearing from you. Thank you. That concludes the hearing for the Maryland Energy Administration, and we will call up the comptroller next.
Thank you.
That heat, Bowie Lions, yes. Like, come on home. Thank you. Even though it lasts as many years as well. Yeah, they're profit. So it takes up too much of their time. They don't have profit.
Can you please take your conversation out in the hallway, please? And, okay, thanks. Yeah, unless we got two secretaries here, and hopefully the others will be.
Thanks again.
Thank you. But expect all those people.
Appreciate you.
It's hard to get through everyone, sorry.
I can understand that very well.
I think that took far longer than any of us expected. So we are mindful of everyone's time, including the two secretaries who are waiting as well. So we appreciate your being here. And we are just going to jump right in, if that is okay, and ask our analyst, Yoshidora Rai, to go start the analysis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Committee members, I am Yashodhara Rai, and I'll be presenting the fiscal 27 budget analysis for the Office of the Comptroller. The cover chart shows that fiscal 27 budget for the Comptroller's Office decreases by $61.2 million. This is after accounting for the proposed deficiencies. The largest decrease occurs in the reimbursable funds, mainly related to the decrease in the agency's 3 major IT projects. This is due to the changes in their project estimates. Moving on to performance measures, Exhibit 1 on page 5 shows that taxpayers filing their personal tax returns electronically has increased by 1.8% in fiscal 25 as compared to fiscal 24. Similarly, the percentage of electronic returns processed within 4 days during the tax season has increased to 92% in fiscal 25 from 87% in fiscal 24. This is the highest between fiscal 2020 and 2025. Previously, the comptroller notified that reporting tax returns indicators on fiscal year basis may alter the trends as a tax year spans between 2 fiscal years. As a result, 2 indicators that measure the percentage of tax returns filed during a tax season was included in the MFR submission. However, no data is reported for tax year 24. The comptroller should comment on the unavailability of the tax year data and provide a timeline for when this will be reported in the MFR submission. Exhibit 2 on page 7 shows that telephone calls remain the most common method to communicate with the comptroller's taxpayer services division. This indicator reached its highest number at about 803,000 telephone calls in fiscal 25. These communications are mostly related to refund status, how to claim tax credit, notices received, or how to remedy license suspensions due to delinquent taxes. The fiscal 26 working appropriation includes $2.9 million in one-time funding for a third-party call center. This funding is not included in the fiscal 27 budget. The comptroller should provide an update on how the call center contract supports outreach along with the year-to-date trends. The comptroller should also comment on how it plans to manage telephone calls in fiscal 27 since additional funding for the call center contract is not included in the fiscal 27 budget. Exhibit 3 on page 8 shows that customer satisfaction with web-based services at the comptroller's office dropped to 65.4% in fiscal 25. This is the lowest between fiscal 2020 and fiscal 25. The comptroller should comment on the reason for the decrease in customer satisfaction. Exhibit 4 on page 9 shows that in fiscal 25, the number of active delinquent individual income tax accounts increased by 1.4%, and the number of active delinquent business tax accounts decreased by 0.8%. The comptroller should comment on the efforts to enforce tax laws and fees to reduce the number of active delinquent cases. Exhibit 5 on page 10 shows how the comptroller uses various methods to pursue recovery of unpaid taxes. The comptroller should comment on the load rate of recovery of unpaid taxes from the 4 methods that are below pre-pandemic levels. Exhibit 6 on page 11 shows the amount of unpaid taxes recovered from fiscal 2013 through 25. The collection of unpaid income taxes reached its highest in fiscal 25 at about $595 million. The amount recovered from unpaid business taxes reduced significantly by 76.6% in fiscal 25. The comptroller should comment on the significant reduction in the amount collected from unpaid business tax cases and how it plans to recover the pending amounts. Exhibit 7 on page 12 shows that while the number of estimated business tax accounts has increased significantly in fiscal 25 by a total of 32.5% from fiscal 23, the rate at which the audits are conducted is lower in comparison to the growth rate of the tax accounts. Moving on to some updates in fiscal 26 on page 13, Section 21 of the fiscal 26 budget bill added a total of $1.3 million to add 11 regular positions across various divisions. These positions are in various stages of recruitment. 2 proposed deficiency appropriations for fiscal 26 are included in the budget for a total of $2.3 million. This includes $2 million in general funds for shortfalls related to lower than expected vacancy savings and $270,000 in special funds from the Strategic Energy Investment Fund to conduct a mandated study on the total assessed cost of greenhouse gas emissions, which is required by Chapters 2 and 12 of the 2025 special session. Exhibit 8 on page 14 shows an overview of the agency's $285.2 million in fiscal 27 allowance. 59% of the budget is for personnel expenses and a total of 21% of the budget is allocated for various contracts. Exhibit 9 on pages 15 and 16 show that the fiscal 27 budget decreases by 17.7% as compared to fiscal 26. This is after accounting for the proposed deficiency appropriations and a contingent reduction. The largest decrease, as mentioned earlier, is due to the reduction in the estimated project cost for the 3 major IT projects. A provision in the Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act of 2026 is discussed in page 17. This provision expands the allowable uses of SEEF and will swap about $125,000 in general funds with special funds from SEEF to support an existing climate resilience director position who serves as the comptroller's liaison in discussions and efforts related to climate change mitigation. DLS recommends modifying the contingent budget bill language to match it with the BRFA provision. Personnel information appears on pages 17 and 18. 10 positions in the Comptroller's Office were abolished under the Voluntary Separation Program in fiscal 26. There is no change in the regular positions in the fiscal 27 budget. The contractual full-time equivalents increased by 12.6 positions. Of these, 10 positions were previously funded through contracts, while the other 2.6 positions are new. The first issue on page 19 discusses the Financial Management Information System Modernization IT project. Exhibit 10 on the same page shows that the total estimated project cost for this project has increased from $60 million in the 2023 session to up to $350 million in the current session. This is mainly due to the scale and complexity of the project as it encompasses applications that are used statewide, like the financial accounting platform. The project is currently in planning phase and has engaged with about 90 agencies to map various business processes and analyze systems of each agency. This has also helped in identifying deficiencies with the current FMI system. According to the agency, design for the new system is scheduled to begin by July of 2027. The biannual status report for the project, which is as required by chapters 22 and 23 of 2023, ends on January 1st, 2027. The comptroller should provide the expected timeline for project completion. The second issue appears on pages 21 and 22 and highlights some of the revisions that were made to the Maryland Uniform Disposition of Abandoned Property Act by chapters 635 and 636 of 2025. Some of the notable revisions include expansion of property to include digital assets and simplifying the claims processes. The Comptroller's Office launched a new unclaimed property website in October of 2025, which integrates the new provisions. The Comptroller estimates requiring additional $4.1 million in fiscal 27 for the new system maintenance, services for the data analytics team, customer relations, management platform, and other IT projects. The Comptroller should provide an update on the implementation of Chapter 635 and 636, and also on the planned fund source for the $4.1 million. Exhibit 11 on page 22 shows that the amount of unclaimed property reported was $351 million, and the amount of unclaimed property paid to its rightful owner was $121 million in fiscal 25. Both measures are the highest reported between fiscal 2020 and fiscal 25. DLS recommendations are on page 23. They both amend the budget bill language to align more closely with the BRFA provision. Page 22 provides a summary of the 2 reports that were submitted by the agency as required by the 2025 JCR. Pages 25 through 31 are appendices. This is the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Ms. Fry? Nope. Thank you. Welcome, Comptroller Bierman.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I am Comptroller Brooke Learman. It's a pleasure to be here. And with me today is our Chief of Staff, Rihanna Matthews-Brown, our Chief Deputy Comptroller, Andy Schoffel, and then many other team members, including our Compliance Director, Ed Wykowski, our Assistant Chief Deputy Comptroller Erica Roach, our Taxpayer Services Director Anna Garay, and our Government Affairs team. Wave. So thank you for having us. Before I answer the analysts, respond to the analyst comments, and thank you, Ms. Ray, for all of your work. I'd love the opportunity to just briefly share some of the work that we have been doing, and you have a much more complete report of the work that we do in your files. But just to level set on some of the work that we do as Maryland's revenue administrator, we serve over 3.2 million taxpayers. They submit more than 5.8 million returns and payments every year. We issue 2.7 million refunds annually. Last year, we served also 500,000 businesses. In FY25, we collected $36.2 billion in total revenue, including $23.7 billion in personal income tax, $7 billion in sales and use taxes, and $2.5 billion in corporate income taxes. These are distributed then, of course, across state government accounts, funds, local governments, nonprofits, as prescribed by statute. We have 3 core priorities, and I'm going to give you just a couple instances or a couple examples of the work that we're doing in each of those core priority areas. Our first core priority is to help make state government work better. In many ways, the Office of the Comptroller, we function as the backbone of state government. You don't see us, but we are holding it all together. And our duties are extensive, and we employ over 1,200 people, which still makes us a very, very lean shop compared to our agencies across the nation. We have focused extensively on modernization, as you all know. Over the past 3 years, we have made enormous strides in building better tools for our staff and the public. We have launched a new website last March, marylandcomptroller.gov, fully 508 compliant, mobile responsive, and it's available in English, Spanish, Chinese, and Korean is planned for the future. We also removed 9,000 outdated or duplicative pages while we were updating that site. We launched MyCom Connect, our CRM platform, the first time ever the agency has had a CRM platform for people to respond to and use. We launched a brand new unclaimed property system, which I'll talk about more later. The unit in FY25 paid out a record of 70,000 claims, a 155% increase over FY24, and returned $121 million to Marylanders, more than double the prior year. We also launched Maryland Tax Connect for all businesses, moving away from our outdated legacy smart system. And this coming year, we will launch Maryland Tax Connect for individuals. We will do that transition in August. And we have implemented improved cybersecurity and fraud detection services, including upgraded infrastructure within our Hearings and Appeals Division. Our second priority is to make sure the resources of the agency reach the people and businesses of Maryland. To do that work, we have a small but dedicated public engagement team and a small business director that gets out across the state to meet with your constituents, to meet with your businesses and your districts. We also continue to do proactive work around the earned income tax credits. Last year, our agency issued 477,000 earned income credits, totaling $555 million. This continues to be and is one of the most effective anti-poverty programs that the state government runs. So far this year, we've also continued to do our Earned It campaign, where we take an all-of-government approach by partnering with 13 state agencies and the governor's office to reach taxpayers. And we hope you'll join us in that. We have social media graphics available on our website that you can share on your social media to let folks know about the earned income tax credit. We also have our Office of Taxpayer Advocate that is fully functional, and they published their first report that you should have as well in your materials just this past week. Our final core priority is supporting Maryland's long-term fiscal growth and success. And the one thing I'll mention there that we're very focused on are leveraging our two of our greatest assets, our data and our internal expertise within the Comptroller's office, to assist you and others in making data-driven decisions. Early in my tenure, we released the agency's first ever research report on the state of Maryland's economy. Last year, we released 3 reports on spending, on transit, on climate costs, and on school construction. We also released our report on housing, migration, and the economy, and we released a report in response to JCR language on baby bonds. So we continue to do this work to try to support you, all of state government, and all of Marylanders. Moving to the DLS comments and our answers. In response to the request to comment on the reason for the unavailability of tax year data for the 2 performance measures and a timeline, very simple, the data for tax year 2024 was not available for the MFR due to the very tiny window between the end of the calendar year and the due date for DBM, but DLS now has all of the data files. The comptroller, DLS, also asked us to provide an update on how the call center contract is supporting outreach and customer service activities. Just want to correct the record here a little bit. That call center contract is not for ongoing everyday work. We we requested it to support our release of the new Maryland Tax Connect system. So our call center is not up and running right now. We will award that contract in May so that it can be up and running before Maryland Tax Connect goes live in August, and then support people as they need it through the next tax season. But that is not a long-term solution to the problems that we have in answering the phones. The long-term solution is both modernizing and making sure that we right-size our own internal call center staff by increasing the number of PINs that we have. Also requested to comment on the reasons for the decreased customer satisfaction. We believe that this is a result of largely attributable to the transition from our legacy smart system to our new cloud-based platform, which introduced new processes and interfaces that many taxpayers and staff were still navigating when these numbers were collected. System transitions of this scale really do create temporary friction in customer experience, but now that we've launched our new CRM, MyCom Connect, which was just implemented in the second half of FY25. We do think that many of these things are being remedied and people are getting used to the Maryland Tax Connect system as well. The comptroller should comment on its efforts to strictly enforce tax laws and fees to reduce the number of active delinquent cases. So that and the next 2 are a lot about how our compliance division works. And I think it's really important to remember that our goal is to bring money in. It's not to send out angry letters, right? So the number of angry letters, we want that to be able to decrease while the number of money we're bringing in increases. So the goal is not to do wage garnishments and sending out collection letters. The goal is to have people pay what they owe. And some of the metrics that we are required to report don't actually get to that end goal. They get to those collection efforts instead. So in response to each of these individual requests, on our efforts to strictly enforce tax laws and fees, a little bit about what the Compliance Division is doing to modernize. The Compliance Division has launched several new efforts to enforce compliance. We have launched something called the Remote Seller Program, which helps us to identify out-of-state businesses that are selling in Maryland, and then to make sure that they are paying what they owe and remitting sales tax. We also have a managed audit program now, which is when we go to a business and we work with them to sort of self-audit and then send us the results. We have a new audit team in our individual income tax unit, and we are also engaged with a vendor to look at unreported income in the digital economy. So specifically, we have launched investigations in people earning capital gains on cryptocurrency sales, and we'll have some news on that front soon. It has gone well so far. Thanks to these investments that you all made, I should say, those investments were buoyed by a $1.6 million investment in staffing and a $3.9 million investment in technology for FY25. We're able to support these new efforts and bring on 8 new auditor trainees to our individual tax audit unit and 14 new auditor trainees to our business tax auditing unit. While training is still underway for many of these new staff members, just with these new staff members, who are still trainees, they have already generated $5 million, not like the whole division, but just those new folks have already generated $5 million in assessments in FY25, and we anticipate that tripling in FY26. The next request is to comment on why the recoveries of unpaid taxes through payment agreements, tax liens, bank attachments, and garnishments remain below pre-pandemic levels. This is where I just want to reiterate, the goal is not to do salary garnishments and bank attachments. The goal is to get money in. Those enforcement methods are last resorts and only need to occur when individuals who have funds actually refuse to pay. The end goal is compliance, not onerous enforcement. The Compliance Division's approach has been to communicate and work with taxpayers to drive payments rather than creating undesirable interactions and challenges in collections. Our liens often exceeded our payment plans before the pandemic, but now we are generating more payment plans than liens and working successfully with our taxpayers to reduce their debts and generate revenue. This new approach means more money in the door while allowing Marylanders to continue to earn income. They also requested that we comment on the reason for the drop in the amount collected from delinquent bank business tax cases and how we plan to recover the pending amounts. So here, the word collections is a term of art. It doesn't mean that we're not bringing in money. It means that we're not sending out collections letters. Which is important to understand, I think, because we are bringing in money. We are just not needing to send out as many collection letters as we needed to before. And part of that is because we have transitioned now to the new Maryland Tax Connect system for business taxes. This fundamentally changed how we identify, how we bill, and how we collect on delinquent accounts. While the data may suggest a decline in bringing in the money, we want to be clear. We do not believe less revenue is actually coming in the door. In fact, we believe the opposite is true. Just as noted above, the goal is compliance and payments, not paper pushing. Under the legacy system we had, auto billing for delinquencies triggered within 48 hours of a return being posted. So you'd post a return, SMART would do whatever it did, and it might think, oh, you didn't pay what you owe, and then it would automatically send a letter out. That led to so many inaccuracies. It would have payments applied to wrong periods, funds held in suspense, bills generated for accounts that had already been paid, and those errors inflated our delinquency figures and compromised the reliability of the data that is being used now. Under the new system with Maryland Tax Connect, we have extended the time between posting and billing to allow for proper payment processing, and now taxpayers, businesses can go in, look at their account, and see, oh, look, I paid this, I posted it, but I owe, and can automatically pay, so that we don't have to send them a letter. We give them a minute to pay. As a result, significantly fewer delinquencies are reaching the billing stage, and our annual accounts receivables reflect this improvement. We've also taken a more deliberate, targeted approach to collections, conducting pre-billing checks for suspended payments, inbound adjustments, and pending corrections before issuing notices. Rather than generating unnecessary correspondence, we're actually contacting taxpayers only when we have confirmed a genuine delay in payment. When we look at if we had applied this approach retroactively from our February 2024 go-live date, our collection numbers would have exceeded prior reported figures. So, of course, with any system transition, there's a learning curve and there's mid-year processing delays, but we are confident that our current methodology is more accurate, more efficient, and better positioned to deliver better results. And the final two have to do with our modernization efforts. The next one is our FEMIS modernization. Just to level set, FEMIS is the Financial Management Information System. It is the state's ERP. Every single agency uses FEMIS, and then we process all of our payments out of it. Our financial management system, our ERP that we use in Maryland state government, is one of, if not the oldest in the nation right now for any state government. The FEMIS modernization project, though, is progressing well. We are going through a phased implementation approach to ensure statewide consistency, to minimize risk, and to enable agencies to transition in a structured way. This is a lot of work for agencies. They are having to send their subject matter experts with ours. We all get together, multiple times a month. Our phase one implementation of the new FEMIS system, the new ERP, will deliver a general ledger, a budget ledger, cost allocation, and financial reporting. Then we'll be able to decommission FEMAS and shut that part of the hard drive, the mainframe down. Subsequent phases will then expand capabilities to grants management, integration with inventory and asset management, advanced financial functions, and agency system innovations. So our milestones are, we're moving. We actually are further ahead than we thought we would be at this time because discovery took half the time that we thought it would. And we are, our RFP for the technology has already come back. It's closed. We'll be choosing an ERP technology solution this year, like before June, probably, or maybe in June. And then we will be, if we need a system integrator, which is like another contractor to help us bring in that system, we'll, we will bring that in before the end of this calendar year. We will have phase 1 implementation start in Q3 of FY27, which is early 2028. This also, I remind the committee, has to align with the availability of funding. So, you know, if funding goes down for this project, then we stretch it out and it takes longer. Unclaimed property. They asked for an update on our implementation, and the implementation is going very well. You all passed a bill last year to modernize the statute to allow us to collect more, and we are to collect more unclaimed property, have businesses remit it to us, especially in the digital space, like cryptocurrency and elsewhere. So we are doing that now. We've also expedited the process of reuniting Marylanders with their unclaimed property by proactively sending money to people who, even if they haven't claimed it, if we have all their contact information and are certain that they are the holders and the true owners of that money. So in December, we sent the first batch of 1,000 quick pay checks to owners of those funds. That was $412,000 that we sent out to people. And we are now including virtual currency. One of the division's third-party auditors has already identified a holder of dormant virtual currency. So we're doing our due diligence and pulling that in as well. Our new system is running well. In my budget hearing yesterday, one of the members said his in-laws had just found their unclaimed property. So it is coming along. Yes. With that, I will just turn very briefly to the fact that we also left with you our FY27 budget request, as well as a report on that was requested on growing our compliance division. So the budget request that we had already submitted goes through 3 specific categories. First, IT. We have this new integrated tax system, Maryland Tax Connect. But we need to build out tax law changes when they are planned and passed by you all. We need to pay to build out those tax law changes. So we are requesting $2 million to build out the tax law changes that the General Assembly has authorized and to continually implement improvements and bug fixes. For instance, this year we need to build out the short-term rental tax that was passed last year and update our PTE tax collection. We'll also be working to ensure single sign-on that's being led by the Department of Commerce. So funding this work protects our prior investment and ensures continuity of service for Maryland taxpayers and businesses. We also are requesting an additional 25 new PINs in FY27 to address current staffing shortages in our taxpayer services division. Last year, we did a staffing analysis that found that we require 129 additional personnel to operate to meet the need. That would be 80% of calls answered within 5 minutes. We requested those 129 new PINs. We received 25, and so we are asking for another 25 this year. If you'd like to give us 104, though, we'll take that too. And then finally, on our legal division and hearings and appeals division, we are requesting 3 additional attorneys to support the implementation of statutes that were passed on the hotel rental tax and digital ad gross revenue related appeals, a bill that was passed last year. So we respectfully request that you strongly consider funding some of those budget requests that we have. And in the memo that was also circulated to you, we have updated a 5-year plan to explain, what we could onboard this year to continue our growing our compliance division, to continue bringing in money for the state as well. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Senator Roosevelt.
Thank you. I'm confused about the chart on page 11.
Okay.
Which you referenced about the collections of delinquent business cases.
Sure.
It says the source is DBM. So what I think I heard you say, but I want to clarify before I go too far, is you disagree with the definition of collections that DBM used for this document, or for the doc, whatever, however DLS got.
Yeah. So I think collections is a term of art.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's also a term that we all use to mean collected, meaning bringing in money.
Yes.
And, Andy can clarify too, but when we say collections, like if you look at actually this memo on auditing, you'll see it says business tax audit, individual tax audit, business tax collections, individual tax collections. And that is because collections is the work and the sending of letters and wage garnishments
Right,
and
no,
whatever.
I heard
of
you
the
say that,
actual.
but
So this is looking at how many collections letters we sent out, but we actually are bringing in money, even though we're not sending out.
I heard you say that, but
Okay.
I want to, but
Sorry,
the implication of that is DBM doesn't understand that. Have you had that conversation with DBM?
Right, I think we need to have that conversation
Yeah.
with them.
Okay.
They get this data from us, to be
Yeah,
clear.
yeah,
We
yeah.
give it to them, they source it to
Yeah.
themselves.
Yes.
Okay, but basically what's underlying that metric, as the comptroller said, has changed. So we would agree, we need to revisit the best way to show that information.
Yeah, we'll talk with DBM about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
But the reality is, our overall business tax collections are far higher than they were, thank you to Maryland Tax Connect. And because of the process change we made, where before we send bills, we're allowing taxpayers to self-cure, and we're also finding money that's
I
already in
get
the
it. I think it's a great
system.
program.
Yeah,
but
we just need to
this
talk
is
with
this is like
DBM. Yeah.
really, really, really confusing.
Yeah.
It's dense metric nuance,
Yes.
agreed.
Yes.
Please get it fixed.
Yeah, we will.
Okay,
We will.
good, okay.
We just
Yeah,
don't
we
ever have
came to that
time
conclusion as
between when this comes out.
I understand, I
you know,
understand, I
And
understand, I
now to
understand,
get
I
it
understand.
fixed. Yep.
That was my little question.
Yeah.
Now, the document on your budget request, this is what you got in the governor's budget? Or
No,
not? This is above the
This is what we
governor's?
did not get.
This is 100% above the governor's budget?
It's 100% above the governor's budget. Yep.
And the offline conversation we had, how does this relate to projected revenue?
This is, you should have a separate memo as well.
I don't think I do, actually.
Where is that? In the
I
folder?
have a taxpayer advocate report, and I have a expanding opportunity for baby bonds.
Oh.
Nope.
Oh, you should have gotten it.
No, that's
Everybody
okay.
else got it. You're the
Okay.
one who wanted it. That give you mine? Yeah. So this is what we talked about. So this is, I think 2 years ago or last
Great,
year,
thank you.
we were requested to do a 5-year staffing plan to our compliance division. So our compliance division was, I don't know if zeroed out is the right term. During COVID, there were no, we were the only state in the country that did no audits. And so everybody who was on the compliance team was sent to other places within the agency. So we have been reconstituting and rebuilding our compliance division. And so 2 years ago, we gave, in response to the Joint Chairman's report, we submitted this 5-year staffing and technology resources plan. We have updated it to show what we believe, what we could bring in this year and what that would mean. And it's sort of 8 additional folks in each of these sections that would help us make sure we could keep growing in business tax audits and individual and in collections to make sure we bring in the money. And we have Ed here and Andy to talk more and answer more questions specifically about audits.
I don't really have any more technical questions on it.
Okay.
And I have now glanced at this memo, thank you. Do you have, or can you get to us, a projection of if we were to increase your compliance capacity in this year's budget, what your projected additional collections would be in this year's, in FY '27, '28, '29? Just play out, what do we get for the investment over what period of time?
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're already working on that.
Great.
Yeah, we heard you loud and clear, I
Yep.
think a week ago. So we've been putting in the work. First, we had to figure out team sizes, and we are quantifying it right
Do you
now.
think you get it to us before we do the budget?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll get
I'm
it to you.
joking, I'm joking, I'm joking.
We'll get it to you in the next couple of days.
That's fine.
Yeah,
That's fine.
I think we're very
Yeah,
close.
we're very
That's good.
close.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
That's all I got, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I just want to follow up on the first point, because this chart, I understand what you're saying about the distinctions between the letters, et cetera, but it has the amount collected on the left-hand side. So if you can get us that data,
Sure.
that will be really, really helpful. Okay. Senator Lewis, yeah.
Thank you. My question is, within the topic of your third goal, which is supporting Maryland's long-term fiscal growth and success, we know there's unlikely to be any revenue increases this year. However, in the out years, that's highly likely that we'll need to do that. So a topic we've talked about frequently, combined reporting. We've been talking about it for decades. Last time we did a study was 2016. That is totally obsolete. And a lot of states have implemented since that time. Do you think that assuming you get these 25 extra pins, you would be able to handle an updated study on combined reporting? And if not, could you let us know what is needed to be able to do that? Because I definitely think we need to update that study and look at that lost opportunity.
Yep, absolutely. I think Andy did our last study when he was
I
at
did. I was a
BRE.
junior analyst.
Yeah, so I think we.
Oh, we talked about
Yeah, so I do believe that we could do an updated study through BRE.
Correct. It is a lot of work to do that type of study. We brought in actual data from all the corporations to be very specific about that. So if we want to follow that same track, it's significant. But it could be done, of course.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you. One quick question. You had said that the consultant that you're bringing in to help with call response, the call center, that contract isn't starting until May. How long does that go?
I think we have it for a year.
A year after the new system comes up for?
A year after it starts. So
August?
it'll take, if they start in May,
Yep.
we'll have it till the next May.
Okay.
And because, they won't be on the phones right away. We have to train them for a little while and, but yes.
Okay.
The purpose is to help taxpayers log into the new system, make sure
Yeah.
they can transition over.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? Andy, this might be your last budget hearing, huh?
Yes, Madam Chair. It might be. I'll
Well.
be sitting back there maybe next time. Heckling.
I think he's gonna pass that one on.
Yeah, yes, I had my time there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for your service to the citizens
you.
of Maryland.
Appreciate you all. It's been a pleasure
Thank you
serving.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes the hearing for the comptroller. I think we are going to jump to the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services. I know we have some time constraints, so we will call up Mr. Weinstock and ask him to go through the analysis, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon. My name is Josh Weinstock, and today I'll be presenting the fiscal 2027 budget for the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services Administration and Offices. The 2027 governor's allowance decreases by $2.2 million, or less than 1%, to a total of about $255 million. I'll begin with the performance analysis, starting with recidivism. As you can see in Exhibit 1 on page 6, recidivism rates represent the proportion of releasees that are returned to either the Department of Corrections or the Division of Parole and Probation following sentences for a new criminal offense, a sentence of probation, or a return to custody from parole or mandatory supervision due to a violation of the conditions of release. As shown in Exhibit 1 Of the individuals who were first released in 2022, 34% returned to incarceration or supervision within 3 years. This marks a 2 percentage point increase from the fiscal 2021 release cohort. Exhibit 2 on page 7 shows the breakdown of the fiscal 2022 release cohort's reasons for recidivism. 12% committed a new offense and received a new state sentence. 11% were placed on probation instead of being put in sentence custody. And approximately 10% of those released returned to custody due to a technical violation of supervision. Exhibit 3 on page 8 shows one-year recidivism rates. Reporting on one-year recidivism rates was discontinued by the department beginning with the fiscal 2027 MFR submission. DPSES should provide one-year recidivism data for the fiscal 2024 release cohort and discuss the reasons for discontinuing one-year recidivism data in its annual MFR submission. The next performance measure is contraband levels, as shown in Exhibit 4 on page 9. Overall contraband find occurrences across all search methods increased by 9% from fiscal 2024 to 2025. In fiscal 25, weapons were the most frequently uncovered contraband at 45% of all fines. Weapons contraband remains at a high level. It increased 82% compared to 5 years ago. Controlled dangerous substances, or CDS, were the second most common type of contraband found in fiscal 25, totaling 31% of all contraband found. Of the 7 types of contraband listed, 6 categories increased in fiscal 2025. The department should explain the rise in weapons discoveries and outline the actions underway to curb weapons contraband within its facilities. DPSES should also discuss metrics that it uses to clarify whether the increase reflects improved detection and enforcement efforts or an actual increase in contraband in circulation. Exhibit 5 on page 10 shows the overall contraband level detected by the K-9 unit in fiscal 25. The level of contraband fines by the K-9 unit dropped to a new low in fiscal 25 to a level last seen in fiscal 2016. The next measure is the Central Home Detention Unit population. As you can see in Exhibit 6 on page 10, the average daily CHD population has remained relatively consistent since the pandemic, decreasing only slightly in calendar year 25 to 153 individuals confined to their homes, which is 55 individuals on average less than calendar year 2024. Finally, Exhibit 7 on page 12 shows the breakdown of correctional program participation. In fiscal 2025, there were nearly 5,500 participants in programming, mostly in education and evidence-based programming. The department indicated that due to a data error, the fiscal 2019 education participation was lower than what was reported in the MFR. When accounting for this revision, in fiscal 25, program participation was still 44% less than the fiscal 2019 participation levels. DPSES should comment on the reasons for the decrease in program participation and its efforts to engage incarcerated individuals. Moving on to the budget, administration and offices receives a total allowance of about $255 million. Exhibit 8 on page 13 shows agency spending by program. The Information and Communication Division receives the most funds of any division at $65 million. The $2 million budgeted decrease from the 26 working appropriation is broken out in Exhibit 9 on pages 14 and 15. Major decreases include $20 million in reimbursable funds in major information technology projects, including the Computerized Criminal History Project and the Electronic Patient Health Record Project that I'll discuss later. A $2 million decrease in cost allocations, and a $1.3 million decrease due to the reduction of 10.7 contractual full-time equivalent positions. Major increases include $8 million in salary adjustments, $7 million in employee and retiree health insurance, and $2 million for the automated fingerprint system project. Turning to personnel on page 16, the allowance contains 1,320.8 regular positions. This is a net increase of 54 positions due to transfers from elsewhere in the department. Of these positions, the Intelligence and Investigative Division, IID, receives 30 of them, and the Deputy Secretary for Operations receives 13 positions. The vacancy rate as of December 2025 was 10%, which is a decrease from the December 2024 vacancy rate, which was nearly 15%. A full breakdown of vacancies by division can be seen on Exhibit 10 on page 17. The first issue I'd like to discuss involves private home detention monitoring agencies. During bail review, judges can order electronic monitoring with ankle monitors of pretrial defendants. As of October 2025, there were 5 companies actively operating in the state. The Maryland Commission on Correctional Standards, or MCCS, is responsible for auditing private home monitoring agencies and overseeing the licensing process. Chapter 893 of 2024 requires private home monitoring companies to notify the court and the Division of Parole and Probation, DPP, within 24 hours if an individual being monitored under home detention has violated a condition of their monitoring. Before the law was enacted, companies were only required to notify the court and DPP on the next business day after a violation. Last year, DPSCS announced that it was suspending the license of Advantage Sentencing Alternative Programs, Inc., or ASAP. The suspension came after a DPS investigation found that the company was not properly notifying the courts and DPP when an individual had broken a condition of their monitoring. Exhibit 11 on page 19 shows the number of individuals being monitored by private home detention monitoring agencies. In August 2024, ASAP was monitoring 160 individuals, or about 25% of the total number of individuals being monitored. The state's largest private monitoring company, A1 Trusted Monitoring, received a letter of reprimand and was put on probation in 2022. The department should comment on MCCS's auditing procedures and standards for private home detention monitoring agencies, including the scope and frequency of reviews and identified compliance issues. DLS recommends restricting $100,000 in general funds pending submission of a report by September 15th, 2026, describing MCCS's oversight of private home monitoring detention agencies. The second issue begins on page 20 and highlights 2 major IT projects that are behind schedule. The Computerized Criminal History Project, or CCH, will replace outdated technology with a new criminal history database and web interface. CCH was first solicited as an on-premise solution. However, during the initial procurement process, DPSCS amended the solicitation to a cloud-based solution. This caused vendors to drop out of the project, and the sole remaining vendor was awarded the contract. Before it could be approved, the department withdrew the contract and chose to restart the process to increase vendor participation. The second solicitation only received 1 response by the due date, causing the agency to push back the expected contract approval further. Ultimately, DPSCS decided to cancel the process in June of 2024. The agency has now reported that it has decided to pursue an in-house solution with oversight from the Department of Information Technology, or DOIT, and extended the procurement timeline by a year. More than 7 years after the beginning of the project, the expected completion date is now set for calendar 2033. The project received $10.7 million in fiscal 26 through a budget amendment, and the fiscal 27 allowance includes about $900,000 in general funds from the IT Investment Fund. More information about the project can be found in Appendix 3. The second project is the Electronic Patient Health Record Replacement, or EPHR. Since 2005, the department relied on its legacy system to track and document medical information for managing the healthcare provided to offenders. The current system has inefficiencies and issues with connecting to external information systems. A contract to replace the EPHR system was previously approved in October 2020, but the vendor failed to meet contractual obligations, prompting DPSCS to terminate the contract and issue a 2-year extension with the legacy vendor. DPSCS is now pursuing a replacement through the Interagency Cooperating Purchasing Agreement to leverage the National Association of Procurement Officials, NASPO, value point contracts. The vendor draft schedule is 18 months, meaning the project will be completed after the Duval versus Moore consent decree expires, leading to potential legal risk. As of December, the department has not met its target date to onboard a new vendor. The department did not receive any funding for the project in fiscal 27 and is not expected to be completed until 2031. Language in the fiscal 26 budget bill withheld $500,000 in general funds until the department submitted a report on the strategy to complete both the CCH and EPHR projects. DLS determined the report to be the report the department submitted to be in compliance with the language and recommends the release of the general funds. DLS also recommends restricting $250,000 pending the submission of a report by November 15th, 2026 on the status of the efforts to complete the projects. The third issue relates to the payment of outstanding medical bills to healthcare providers beginning on page 21. Several healthcare subcontractors were not paid fully for the services they provided under the previous healthcare contract with YesCare, which led the department to withhold contract payments to the contractor. The department reported that it paid $2.8 million to 12 subcontractors with invoices that YesCare had acknowledged as undisputed. DPSCS only paid undisputed claims and also indicated that it did not pay hospital or providers without written subcontracts, citing that doing so could be unlawful. DPSCS initially planned to withhold approximately $8 million in final payments due to unresolved subcontractor invoices. The department subsequently paid $2.8 million directly to subcontractors for undisputed claims. And in June 2025, the department and YesCare resolved their contractual dispute through a settlement agreement where the department paid $10 million to YesCare, and YesCare acknowledged the state had no outstanding past due obligations. The department should comment on how the payments to subcontractors factored into the final settlement payment to YesCare and how the final settlement was determined. Language in the 26 budget bill withheld $100,000 until the department submitted a report on the funds withheld from the medical care contract. Budget bill also withheld $100,000 until the department submitted a letter confirming payment of outstanding bills to healthcare providers. Both the letter and the report were submitted, and DLS determined both to be in compliance with the budget language and recommends the release of the general funds. The final issue in the analysis discusses the recruitment of correctional officers, or COs. Exhibit 12 on page 22 shows new hires for CO positions, which are entry-level positions. New hires increased nearly 68% from 24 to 25. Exhibit 13 on page 23 shows a breakdown of how the department translated applications into interviews and then into new hires through the first 9 months of 2025. Among entry-level CO applications, nearly 13% were eventually hired. On the other hand, administrative positions received nearly 70% of all applications and translated about 1% of those into new hires. The department has used several strategies to drive recruitment efforts, including recruitment events and advertisements on social media, radio, and TV. They have also used a number of bonuses to encourage recruitment and retention. Language in the fiscal 26 budget bill withheld $200,000 until the department submitted the second of 4 quarterly hiring and attrition reports to the budget committees. DLS determined these reports to be in compliance with the budget language and recommends the release of the funds. DLS also recommends restricting $200,000 in fiscal 27 pending the submission of the second of 4 quarterly reports on hiring and attrition. Finally, turning to the recommended action section on page 25 through 30, DLS is recommending restricting $250,000 pending a report describing how the agency will minimize overtime spending, and another report restricting $250,000 pending a report regarding the department's oversight of its medical and mental health care contract. Both of these reports were discussed in the overview analysis, but the recommendations appear in the administration and offices. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? All right, Madam Secretary, welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee, and Madam Chair, thank you for accommodating us today because of our schedule. The department appreciates the collaboration that we have with Department of Legislative Services and Mr. Weinstock's hard work on this analysis. You do have my written testimony before you addressing these issues, and we concur with the recommended actions. I would also like to take a moment to clarify a few items regarding the recidivism, reporting cited, and the analysis. Since 2021, the department has produced detailed measurement of 3-year recidivism to measure public safety outcomes post-release for state incarceration. And if I may pause for a moment, I did not introduce my executive director for Intel and Investigations that is with me, Mr. Donnie Bauer. My apologies. Now that formal 3-year recidivism data is consistently available, the department aligned its MFR reporting to mirror the same calculations submitted in the JCR report to reduce confusion. Before 2022, the department's ability to report recidivism was affected by the migration of our primary data system. During that interim, the limited recidivism measure was provided through the MFR. This measured how many individuals returned for a new offense within a year. Compared to our 3-year recidivism measure, the previous MFR measure was inaccurate and underreported new offense recidivism before it was reported after 1 year or sooner. The overall recidivism rate and new offense recidivism rates are both now provided in the MFR. The Joint Chairman's recidivism report contains historical first-year outcomes from 2016 to 2022. Regarding the modernization of the CCH, significant progress has been made since we made the decision to fully shift to an internal modernization strategy for the CCH system. The project initially experienced delays after 2 unsuccessful attempts to procure vendors in 2020 and 2022, and a failed engagement with IBM in April of 2025. After a comprehensive internal reassessment, we are utilizing our own ITCD programmers to update all 12 main systems. This has resulted in the JUICE system being completed with the IDENT Index system updated scheduled to begin in April. This shift reflects DPSCS's commitment to owning the full modernization lifecycle and leveraging internal subject matter expertise to ensure accuracy, completeness, and long-term stability. I'm happy to report that we are on track to have all 12 of these systems updated by the end of 2028. This shift also avoids $17 million in initial implementation costs and is projected to save about $4 million annually in maintenance. Lastly, as you know, DPSCS initiated the process to replace the outdated EPHR system. We are currently working with DUIT to complete a survey of several solutions in the hopes of finding one that can service multiple departments in the state. In conclusion, with DPSCS having grown its administrative workforce by 4.5%, our effectiveness and oversight of vital functions has greatly increased significantly with procurement, security, information technology, and internal intelligence. Thank you again, and we are happy to answer any questions you have.
Are there any questions? Madam Secretary, I don't see in your written comments the what you just said about the MITDP. So if you could get that to us. Because I thought that the analysis said the project wouldn't be done till 2032, if I remember correctly.
The CCH 2033 and the electronification.
Okay.
It's 2031.
And you're saying that it's going to be done in 2028?
So the CCH is now internal because we have hired some new staff with some expertise. We are on point for 2028 for that. We are working along with the modernization project with the governor's office to work on EPHR, our electronic patient health record, to see if we can find a viable solution that both Maryland Department of Health, Department of Juvenile Services, and ourselves can all have together, but yet be able to customize to fit the needs of each of those agencies.
And you think that will be ready in 2028?
Well, we're projecting it out that we should be close to it, yes.
And are you working with Do It, or do you have your own
So
folks?
for the CCH, we have our own RTCD department. For CCH, we are working independently, but for EPHR, we're working very closely with Do It.
And have you been working with Do It all along on both?
We always confer with Do It, but for as long as I've been around, we've already had our independent information technology division within the department, which we have a CIO that oversees, Chief Information.
Okay. Okay, we can continue that offline. I am also concerned about private home monitoring companies. And the internal reviews, especially given the issues that have arisen with regard to them, and the, is it 2-year audits?
Every 2 years.
Yeah, I guess that is concerning to me, that given the issues that have arisen, that there isn't a more regular and hands-on oversight of them. And so I'll just put that out there.
And I'll let you know, it is every 2 years unless we are informed otherwise. So
Right.
if the courts makes us aware, or we become aware that there is a non-compliance issue, then we do initiate an investigation.
Okay, so there's, yeah, and okay, this
So
is to
there
be
is an
continued.
ability to still investigate it within that 2-year period.
Okay, okay, any other questions at the moment? All right. We will follow up on other issues offline. Thank you
so
very much.
Have a great day.
Thanks, you too. That concludes, thank you, Mr. Weinstock, and we will, oh, I'm sorry, there is one person who would like to testify, and that person is Tiara Sturkins from AFSCME, so please come up.
Good afternoon. My name is Tiara Sturkins, and I'm a trustee with Local 3661. We represent Community Corrections. I work as a police communications operator. As a police communications operator, we monitor incarcerated individuals on the home detention program, as well as document serious incidents that take place in state of Maryland correctional facilities. It is our responsibility to monitor radio communication and satellite GPS for home detention officers, enter and complete warrants for escapees for home detention in the state of Maryland, and notify IID detectives of serious incidents within state of Maryland facilities. All of these tasks may sometimes be completed by only one PCO per shift, with a rough estimate of 150 individuals on home detention and 18 different state of Maryland facilities. This impacts public safety directly, as PCOs are forced to make judgment calls throughout their shift quickly in order to meet the work volume. We work in a very stressful environment, which can be alleviated by allocating budget funds for more staffing to provide a better workload balance. Currently, we have been attempting to engage with DPSCS in order to complete a staffing analysis, but this has not been successful. I urge this body to consider higher staffing levels for police communication operators. Finally, we also ask that wages be increased in order to keep up with the cost of living, and that step increases be maintained for state of Maryland workers. After working in an already stressful environment, it is important that state workers are compensated at a rate that keeps up with inflation and allows state workers to support themselves and their families. Retention of longtime state workers relies on competitive wages, and without competitive wages, we risk losing experienced workers. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Thank you very much for testifying today and for your service. Thank you. Now that concludes DPSES. And hopefully they are still here, the Maryland Department of Transportation, the Secretary's Office. Thank you. And Ms. Norton. We'll wait a minute.
Okay, again for the record, Kelly Norton, and I'm presenting the Secretary's Office. Beginning with page 1, we have the operating budget summary. The budget for fiscal 2027 increases to $167 million, a 23.3% increase compared to fiscal 2026. The PAYGO capital budget summary is on page 2. The fiscal 2027 allowance increases to $87.4 million, or 23.4% from fiscal 2026. Exhibit 1 on page 5 shows the annual department-wide filled and vacant positions as of January 1st from 2017 through 2026. The number of filled positions grew in January 2026 compared to that time in the previous year. However, the vacancy rate also increased over that same period from 7.1% to 7.5%. The Spending Affordability Committee recommended that MDOT spend no less than $1.15 billion on system preservation. On page 6 is Exhibit 2, showing the system preservation funding. MDOT expects to spend $1.19 billion in fiscal 2026 and $1.39 billion in fiscal 2027. Chapter 605 established the Department of Social and Economic Mobility. The department was created through the moving of functions from other agencies, including MDOT's Office of Minority Business Enterprise. This new department's creation led to the transfer of $4.4 million in special funds and 37 positions from MDOT to DOSEM in fiscal 2026. MDOT will continue to fund OMBE through the Transportation Trust Fund. Section 21 of the fiscal 2026 budget bill added a total of $12.9 million to the appropriation for TSO, including $12.6 million to the capital program and $250,000 for the operating program. The agency should provide an update on the status of the use of these funds, including the status of grant agreements and distributions. The fiscal 2027 budget includes a proposed efficiency appropriation of $5.3 million in special funds to provide additional funding for software licenses, building maintenance and security, and employee onboarding and development. Exhibit 3 on page 8 shows the overview of agency spending in fiscal 2027. Technology services comprise 61% of the operating budget. 27% of agency spending is for departmental administration and 12% for operating grants and aid. Exhibit 4 on page 9 has a proposed budget and provides a breakdown of the areas of growth between fiscal 2026 and 2027. Fiscal 2027 increases $31.6 million over the 2026 working appropriation. Personnel expenses account for a $31 million increase from fiscal 2026 to 2027, with the largest portion being $28 million for salary increases and associated fringe benefits due to the transfer of 184 positions from the MDOT modes as part of an IT consolidation plan. Exhibit 5 on page 10 shows the operating grants and aid funding for fiscal 2027. There is a total of $20.8 million for the grants, the same amount as the fiscal 2026 working appropriation. Personnel data can be found on page 11. Regular positions increased by 184 from the fiscal 2026 working appropriation. Again, these positions were transferred to the Secretary's Office as part of MDOT's efforts to consolidate IT operations. Looking to the 2026 Consolidated Transportation Program, or CTP, Exhibit 6 on page 12 shows the 6-year program capital spending from fiscal 2026 to 2031. The 6-year total is roughly $293 million, with 47% going towards major projects and an additional for the minor program. Additional 47%, sorry, for the minor program. On the next page, Exhibit 7 provides the list of projects in fiscal 2027. The fiscal 2027 allowance is $88.4 million. The largest project planned for fiscal 2027 is the MDOT Solar Implementation Project with $40 million, followed by the minor program at $28.9 million. Exhibit 8 on page 14 has the capital cash flow changes from fiscal 2026 to 2027. Fiscal 2026 enacted included $50 million from the Strategic Energy Investment Fund transferred from the dedicated purpose account for TSO Solar Implementation Project. The Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act of 2025 authorizes expanded use of CEF for fiscal 2026 only, but the CTP shows much of this funding to be expended in fiscal 2027 and 2028. TSO should discuss the shifting of the timeline for the use in the CTP given the authorization of the expanded use in fiscal 2026 only. Exhibit 9 on page 15 shows the cash flow changes from the fiscal 2026 allowance to the fiscal 2026 working appropriation. As you can see, the cost of major projects increased $19 million and the minor program increased $15.6 million for a total of roughly $35 million. TSO should provide an explanation of how the $12.6 million in legislative addition is being expended in the fiscal 2026 working appropriation. Exhibit 10 on page 16 shows the breakdown of the cash flow changes from fiscal 2026 working appropriation to the fiscal 2027 allowance. Major projects increase $27.9 million, and the minor program decreases $10.3 million, leading to an overall increase of $17.5 million in fiscal 2027. Exhibit 11 on page 17 shows the percentage of first-year funding and ongoing funding in fiscal 2027. Ongoing funding is $36.2 million, or 41% of the allowance, and first-year funding accounts for $52 million, or 59%. On pages 18 through 19, Exhibit 12 shows the breakdown of first-year funding for fiscal 2026 and 2027. There is $14.5 million in first-year funding for fiscal 2026 and $52.2 million for fiscal 2027. Exhibit 13 on page 19 shows the major changes from the last CTP. Two projects were added, the MDOT Solar Implementation Project and the statewide rail trespass study for a total cost of $51 million. The issue on the new federal rule for disadvantaged business enterprise program begins on page 20. In October 2025, the U.S. Department of Transportation issued a new interim final rule for its disadvantaged business enterprise program and the airport concession disadvantaged business enterprise program. The new rule removed the presumption of racial minorities and women as being socially disadvantaged. Disadvantaged status is now determined on a case-by-case basis based on the submission of a personal narrative to prove social and economic disadvantage. This rule requires state DOTs to reevaluate all currently certified DBEs under Unified Certification Programs, or UCP, based on the new definition, and for the DOTs to reset DBE goals based on the refocused UCPs. DBE certifications are handled by OMBE, which is now under DOSEM. An expedited procurement process was approved for the recertification process, and 2 vendors were awarded 6-month contracts in January of 2026. TSO should comment on what are the next steps for MDOT once DOSEM finishes the recertification process. On page 22 and 23 are the recommended actions. They are to add annual language restricting operating grants and aid funding in the operating budget, and in the pay-go budget, add annual language limiting capital project and grant funding to the projects identified in the CTP. And this concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? No? Thank you very much, Madam Secretary.
Good afternoon, Chair Hedelman and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Katie Thompson, Acting Secretary of Transportation. It's good to see you again this afternoon. I'm joined by Deputy Secretary Samantha Biddle. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today to discuss the budget for MDOT's Secretary's Office, and thank you to Kelly Norton for her work on the DLS analysis. Today, I'd like to briefly highlight 2 ongoing initiatives and 1 recent achievement by the department. MDOT is a data-driven agency and is committed to protecting the data and technology that we rely on to run our transportation system and to secure our customer-sensitive data. As you've heard in many of MDOT's budget hearings, in July 2025, the department consolidated all IT staff across the modes into one IT office at the Secretary's office. Currently, about 270 employees are now working together to successfully maintain MDOT's IT network and provide IT services that are critical to our operations. MDOT's IT consolidation efforts are creating a unified team that can holistically focus on the department's needs, such as discontinuing the use of obsolete legacy software and hardware and reducing the number of data centers our team maintains, thereby mitigating associated risks. These efforts allow MDOT to better leverage our resources and deploy best practices across the entire department. Turning to apprenticeships, MDOT is also working to grow the state's workforce and address the critical need for more skilled trade workers, as many projects across Maryland are now competing for a limited labor pool. At the MTA budget hearing, we talked about the incredible bus maintenance apprenticeship program that was developed in partnership with ATU Local 1300 and the Community College of Baltimore County. MDOT is also working in partnership with the Federal Highway Administration and the Maryland Department of Labor to initiate the $24 million Road to Careers program. Now in its second year, the program provides funds to eligible partners to develop skilled workers in the transportation and construction industry. The program supports registered apprenticeships, pre-apprenticeships, and integrated education models. To date, MDOT has awarded $4 million through the program and anticipates training and supporting 1,200 Marylanders in the first award round. This is a great program, and we look forward to continuing to expand its reach. Lastly, I want to take a moment to recognize a recent milestone achieved by the department. Each year, the department prepares its annual comprehensive financial report detailing the financial activities of the department in the prior fiscal year. The report is prepared in accordance with government accounting standards and is audited by an independent certified public accountant firm. MDOT's fiscal year 2025 report received an unmodified or clean opinion, which means that there are no material misstatements or errors. It demonstrates MDOT's longstanding commitment to a strong internal control and financial management framework. In addition, each year, MDOT submits the report for review by Government Finance Officers Association. For the 25th year in a row, MDOT was recently awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. This milestone reflects MDOT's commitment to financial disclosure and transparency. Turning to the DLS analysis, the department concurs with both recommendations from the analysis. We prepared written responses to the questions in the analysis, and we are happy to provide any additional information or answer any questions that you have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Other questions? Senator Lewis-Young.
Thank you. I'm looking at the recommendations on page 23, pay-go budget recommendations, provided that no funds may be expended by the Secretary's office for any capital project or grant that's in excess of $500,000 that isn't currently in the fiscal 26 to 31 consolidated transportation plan. At first I thought, well, that seems like kind of a low amount for a capital expenditure, but then I thought, well, for budgeting purposes, you really need to know. And then I looked down to see the Budget Committee shall have 45 days to review and comment on the proposed capital project or grant. It would seem to me that if you're in the situation that you needed to expend that amount of money or more, and the project is not in the consolidated transportation program, it's probably an emergency. And so is that 45-day review period reasonable?
That is a very good question. Jacqueline, can you respond to it? Or maybe you want to?
No, thank you for the question, Senator. I think this is actually fairly typical annual budget language that we have, and typically the way that and the way that we develop our capital program, we try to consolidate our updates to the Consolidated Transportation Open to when we are publishing both the draft and the final, and there would be a rare circumstance when we would need to go through this particular procedure because of how we tend to run our capital program. In my 12 years at the department, I can't think of a time when we've necessarily even had to go through this particular, I will defer to, yeah, very infrequent. I appreciate your bringing this up in concern. We do comply, with this language, and certainly perhaps the types of, projects or needs that you'd be identifying may fall more on the operating side of things for, maybe an operational emergency that we may need to address through like a maintenance type of thing. So that would fall more on the operating side than on the capital side. But I think this is to ensure that we are being kind of like fully transparent with how we're programming our capital projects, and that's why we go through those kind of updates biannually, both with our draft in the fall and our final, which we just submitted.
Okay, thank you for that explanation.
Thank you. Senator.
I do have one question. On the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, I read what was put in the DLS report, and I don't get it at all. So basically, it's someone who wants to be certified or recertified has to sort of, like an essay to get into college, to say, here's my life story and why I think I'm disadvantaged. Is that the idea?
Yes, so the U.S. Department of Transportation issued what they call an interim final rule that has imposed on all the states, including Maryland, a requirement that we can no longer make generalized assumptions.
I know.
So yes, and the reason DOSM was set up was to help make those provide the guidance to entities that want to be considered as DBEs, and then go through the recertification process. Individual entity by individual entity.
Right. Okay, but from what I read, I haven't read the original documents, but it strikes to me like an essay when you're applying to college, and then it's, what standards would you apply to judging what they say about their disadvantage?
Well, so DOSM has issued guidance that provide, objective criteria that they can use.
That you can
provide
use.
Clarity. Well, they will make the determination. We do not.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. This is not our.
It's a new agency under the state of Maryland.
Oh, I'm understanding. Secretary Simmons, you mean?
Yeah.
I understand. Okay, but it's the state, not the feds.
It is the state, and they have put out guidance that articulates objective criteria that entities who want to go through recertification, or new entities who were never certified before.
Okay, so I need to check with them.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I do have a question, and it's not a real focus of this, but the JCR is mentioned on the WMATA versus MTA police force with regard to Purple Line. So we don't need to do it now, but I would like to have a conversation because I did just look at the JCR, which was not particularly illuminating to me. So would like to follow up with that.
Happy to follow up, and I will say we're having ongoing conversations with WMATA to see if we can kind of work out an arrangement that works for them and meets our needs as well.
Okay, because it is not in this one, but in a different, it's a lot of people and a lot of money.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions? All right, thank you. We appreciate you hanging out this long and hope you heal quickly.
Thank you. Well, I thought I'd follow the PSC Commissioner Barber's suggestion of having a meniscus injury, so. Work here is done?